Greetings. I'm David Kong, the founder and principal of DEI Advisors. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to self-empowerment. We are delighted to have Mike Deitemeyer on our show today. Mike is the president and CEO of Aimbridge Hospitality and is well-respected industry veteran. He has won numerous awards and accolades, including the Stephen Brenner Silver Plate Award from Hotel News Now and Lodging Magazine naming him Person of the Year. Mike, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show.
David, a pleasure, and always happy to participate in a great discussion.
Well, thank you. Mike, let's start with your career journey. Can you share some inflection points and the key factors that contributed to your success?
Yeah, happy to. And I'll go back fairly early in my career, David. When I was in college, first of all, I grew up in a family of parents who did not go to college, and my mother early on told me that it was something that I needed to do, but clearly didn't have any real direction or mentor at that point. And I have an accounting degree. I ended up going to school. I got an accounting degree. But I did it only because I understood what that was. And I had an opportunity in my junior year to do an internship. And I went to a small regional school, Fitchburg State University in Massachusetts. And I was a commuter student, a 4-year university, but I drove back and forth and worked along the way. All I knew, I was working in a broom factory of all places, making brooms, getting paid by the dozen. I knew I didn't want to do that the rest of my life. I had no idea, other than I was getting an accounting degree, what I really wanted to do. And I had this internship for a opportunity, and I interviewed at 3 places. And they had me interview at a bank. I'm thinking I was pretty excited going to work in a bank. That would be kind of cool. But I went, interviewed at the office, and they wanted me to be in the basement all summer long working on SOPs. I didn't even know what SOP was at the time, but they explained to me we're going to redo our standard operating procedures. So I was going to work in that. And then I went and interviewed at a grocery store chain, and the office was actually above one of the grocery stores. So that wasn't very exciting. And the next place I went to interview was the Worcester Marriott, Worcester, Massachusetts. It was a brand new hotel, a year or two old. I had actually, as a young kid growing up, we camped, or you'd stay in a motel where your car was parked outside the door. I'd never been into a hotel that had a fine dining restaurant, a live nightclub, a retail store, and I decided that was the industry, and that was what I wanted to do. And it was the environment. I think, the part of our industry, it does attract people. It's got this energy about it. It's dynamic. It's 365. It's 24 hours a day. So that was my journey. And literally the week I graduated, I became a full-time employee of Interstate Hotels and Resorts, who was the manager of that hotel at the time. So I was vested in the hospitality business. I was on that journey. I was the guy who, literally I moved from Massachusetts to Charlotte, North Carolina. I'd never been in the state before, other driving through to go to Florida when I was young. Worked there and coming into an industry that you didn't really know, you didn't go to school for, had the advantage of the internship. It was really just about leaning in and then being the guy that volunteered for everything. Coming from that kind of blue collar background, I felt going in that I didn't have all the tools that I needed, my educational background, those types of things, but I felt like I could outwork some of the others, and I'd make up for my lack of ability with my work ethic. And that was something I kind of latched on early on. And then I was there 9 months, moved to Memphis, Tennessee to open a hotel in Memphis. There a year, moved to Minneapolis, and multiple moves on my journey, being just somebody who would volunteer for the next role, next opportunity. It was a great time. It was a time, though, that I was pretty heads down all through that journey. And then I was actually at 24 years old, I was a regional controller for Interstate Hotels. And I went to a closing of a hotel. A guy in Texas was buying a property that I was at. And I explained to them how there were certain prorations and things that mattered that in this purchase price, in this purchase accounting need to transact. And long story short, ended up going to work for this individual. And then later, I guess 5 years later, we bought Omni Hotels. I was CFO of his company at the time. And then certainly from that journey, spent 23 years at Omni, from CFO to COO to president. And then from there back to Interstate Hotels as CEO in 2017, which was a pretty cool, when you're thinking about your career and that journey, to have the opportunity to go back someplace that I started as an intern to be CEO of the company was a pretty special time and moment. And then from there, merged with Ambridge Hospitality. So today, I sit here in Dallas, Texas now. And we have, with a deal we just closed last week, we're at 1,600 signed hotel management agreements in 23 different countries.
Wow, what an amazing story. It just goes to show you the opportunities our industry affords. It doesn't matter where you are and how you began. With hard work, dedication, you get somewhere. It's a wonderful story. And I was listening intently when you talk about raising your hands and venturing into uncharted territory. How important was that to your success?
Well, we have new general managers come here to our corporate office. I'm sitting in here today in Dallas, and part of what I talk to them about, I share a few things, and one of those, depending on where you are in your life and what you're willing to do, there is no greater experience than working with an organization and constantly challenging yourself to do new things. The reality is, by raising your hand for new opportunities, you not only, in my case, get to see new cities, new locations, but you're working for different leaders with different skills and with different expertise. And it turbocharges your personal development. You can have a great career in hospitality. You can stay in a single market. You could stay in a single hotel. There are great opportunities there. I don't want to imply that there's not. But that journey of going to new places, seeing new things, growing as a human being just through all of that, all of those experiences. Once again, I was a simple kid from central Massachusetts, living in Charlotte and then Memphis, Tennessee. I mean, I'd never been that far west in my life, and the exploration, as well as learning that there's not just one way to do things, was fantastic and incredibly important in my career.
I love that story, and like you, I've also volunteered quite a few times to go into uncharted territory, and I grew tremendously as a result and became much more marketable because of that experience. It's a wonderful story. Thanks for sharing that. Now, you alluded to this earlier. You have known the Rowling family for a long time and very fortunate to work for them when they acquired and transformed Omni Hotels and Resorts in many ways. Tell us some of the learnings from that experience.
So at the time, my background had been 100% financially focused. And so part of what Interstate Hotels, now Ambridge, was known for, and the legacy, was being very good disciplined managers of a financial statement, and could manage to an owner's expectations of a return. Now, when you're on the management side, you're holistically focused on that. So when we bought Omni, I mentioned I was the CFO of the company that acquired, we were called TRT Development, and we acquired Omni February 29th, 1996, so in a leap year. I led the team that was doing the underwriting of all the assets. We didn't have a lot of consultants help us. It was a small team. We had 8 people, and we did this work to buy Omni. And when we initially stepped kind of into the process, things weren't moving as quickly as they'd like. And I of course raised my hand. One thing led to another, and I became COO. So that's my transition to operations really happened through that acquisition of that business, and not realizing the synergies and effectiveness that I thought would be pulled through the company. The reality is that was an incredible learning experience. So a couple things, just like I mentioned, different managers help you grow as an individual. So having some diversity in different mentor opportunities, folks to learn from. What I learned is owners of assets have different strategies as well. And this was this moment of, because I went from an organization that was managing for private equity and insurance companies that had one expectation, to somebody that was highly focused on sustainable growing EBITDA. So it was, these were assets that we were acquiring, the brand we were acquiring for the long term. And what that really taught me, David, is balance. And so at Omni, we use the term trilogy, the balance between the owner, the associate, and the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And we spent a lot of time and a lot of thoughtfulness around what's it mean to have a sustainable long-term business. I mean, candidly, you have to take great care of your associates. You have to take great care of your customers. And it's finding that balance, because any one of those pendulums goes too far and the ecosystem kind of falls apart on you. And so I was very proud that and I think part of these journeys that we all go on is, when you're in the mix of it, having some level of awareness is what's happening around you. And I was very proud that we found that right balance. And one of our peers in the industry, was a mentor to me when I was young, and I told him I was going to move from CFO to COO, and he told me, "Oh, they'll never accept you as an operator." And then I didn't win. We won 7 J.E. Powers Awards for quality in Omni. So I was fairly proud of that, being part of the team that kind of led through that journey. But it was transformational from the perspective of understanding the business from a real estate mindset and a brand, which I didn't really have. I was just kind of the operator before that. And so it gave me lenses into the space and appreciation for a lot of things that I didn't really have prior.
That's such a wonderful learning experience. Sounds like, and your transition from CFO to COO, that must have been a story in itself. That you must have quite a few challenges throughout that experience. Let's talk about your learnings from any difficulties or setbacks or disappointments that you've had.
Yeah, I think certainly as a young man, kind of going through the journey, I never felt like I had a plan B or another option. Kids today, or at least folks I see, feel like there's this easy escape valve. And I never felt like I had that. I felt like it would be, and I'm not suggesting this is the only way, because it's not, but to me, that would be life-altering failure. So I just I felt the need to lean into everything and lead with your chin on any issues or opportunities. I worked hard to never run from a challenge or a problem. And I think it's funny on the journey of the companies I've gone through, Interstate, TRT, which became Omni, back to Interstate, and then Ambridge. There's only one phase in there where I really interviewed for a job. So I was just always promoted and recognized for the work and the efforts, but that's hard, doing something for sustainable, just like marriage. I've been married 30 years. Some of these things, it's hard. I think understanding that success is a two-way street, that you've got to lean in, you've got to deal with things that are least appealing to you, has been kind of a core of what I think of as my own brand.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have a tremendous work ethic, and you're just going to plow through it no matter how hard it is. That's one of the trademarks of your success.
For it's not always that simple, but for me, that's certainly something that I pride myself on, is that ability and willingness to do that.
Yeah, the hard work and dedication really helps a great deal. Let's talk about your approach to challenges. We've all had them. What's your general approach to that?
I think first, to step back and really understand what the core issue is. And so when someone comes to you and shares a problem, in many cases, that's not really the fundamental problem. So it's understanding and listening in a way to get to what the root issue is. So I try to be thoughtful about that. I try to ask questions to get at what the real core of the issue is. And then, as I was saying earlier, it's about kind of taking that issue head on, owning it, and trying to work to resolve it. But I think all too often in our lives, in our relationships, we don't slow down enough to truly listen to. We take the problem at face value, and it's rarely that. There's always another layer, another piece. And I think working on your listening skills as a leader is incredibly important.
Oh, I totally agree with you. If you don't understand the problem, there's no way you can fix it properly. That's very sage advice. And also what I find interesting is sometimes when you try to redefine the problem, it becomes obvious that the initial problem that you think you had wasn't really the problem. It's something else. But that's also through active listening and asking a lot of questions. Very good advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
We talked about mentors earlier, and you certainly also mentioned the fact that you didn't have to interview for a lot of jobs. People were sponsoring you or championing for you to move up to different positions. How do you find mentors and champions? They played a big factor in your career journey.
Yes, but it's in my career, my journey, I didn't set out, like, no one signed me a mentor. I didn't set out to find to find a mentor per se. I think similar to the listening conversations, one of the people I learned the most from in the industry is a savant around the details of the business, but not a great leader in other ways. And so for me, the journey was, how do you observe and take the best from those folks and mold them into your own evolution and how you're growing. Now, connections, reaching out to people for advice, that's how it does start with that, right? So it's meeting folks, or if you're in our industry and you're working in a hotel where you're going to school, and then later you find yourself in a different hotel, nurture the relationship from that first general manager. You don't need to walk in and say, I want you to be my mentor, and will you talk to me once a month? But what is important is a level of connectivity and letting someone know that you appreciated their leadership and their time. People, we all like that level of affirmation. When somebody goes through the effort to tell you and to share with you, even when a young person reaches out, I feel a different level of connection to that person. If I see an email or have a phone call, a year, 2 years later, and they're asking for advice or a question, that's someone I'm going to help versus, someone who reaches out blindly. So I think, as you think about yourself going through a journey in our space, whatever your brand is, and I think in those types of terms, whoever you've decided you're going to be, it's being consistent, leveraging to that, and then maintaining these touch points throughout your journey. And someone who, I know people that have mentors that they're very close with that they only worked for 9 months, but there was something about that connection that then grew. And people, especially in our industry, that's 365, 24 hours a day, we understand the value of our team members and our associates and folks that make that extra effort will go far. So I tell people, it really starts with you. It's not, somebody's not going to appoint you. They may. In some organizations, we assign mentors. Some leadership programs, we assign mentors. But it's more granular than that. The ones that I think are the tightest and last the longest.
That's wonderful advice. I really like it, because I personally have not seen formal mentorship program work very well. But I've seen plenty of situations where we connect with people that we like and we seek advice from them. That's worked really well, like exactly what you just said. What about champions and sponsors, though? Don't we want others to try to advocate for us so we have a chance to move ahead?
Absolutely. And I think when you think about sponsors or champions, when you're working in any role, a boss, a supervisor, an owner of the business, they're going to value you the most if you make their life easier. And so part of it's that simple. People want you to solve their problems. They don't want you to be a problem. So how you balance asking for help versus listening to what they're really looking for, I think that's something that also people become champions for you, want you on their team if they know you're going to make their job easier. Sometimes as a young manager coming up, you're doing that for a manager who you may not think is great or has all the tools or the skills. That doesn't matter. You've got to lean into those things because you're going to learn and you're going to grow personally. And if you stay focused on that, I think that's the core. It's easy. We all, especially the world today, social media, it's easy to complain. It's easy to do this and that. The majority of managers, no matter how good you are, they don't want you in their office telling you how bad everyone else is to lift yourself. They want you to be the ones most effective at solving their problems. And I found when you do that for people and you lean into it like that, there's times, and this might be more controversial, but I would give my boss full credit for anything, and I would affirm them in front of their boss when we're presenting something. I wouldn't say I. It was never I did it. Those things matter, and human nature is part of this journey, right? This isn't I know as we talk diversity, it's not that. It's the people that have helped me or that I've helped regardless, is what I've valued the most as a leader. And that's, I think people just need to be aware of that. I don't want to take a group of people that are my best friends into a meeting. I want to take a group of people that are going to help us perform or help me perform and deliver on the promise. And I worry sometimes I see people get too wound up in other things and who gets credit and who doesn't get credit. At least from my experience, it doesn't always happen in the timing you want it to happen, but it happens if you're consistent. Those people that you're there for become your mentors and champions.
Yeah, no, I agree with you totally. I just think there's so much wisdom to that, and I think it's a lot of people are so eager to claim the credit. They think it's their way to move ahead, but it's not. It's sharing the credit, especially with your boss, is really important.
Yeah,
I like that. We talked about education earlier. How important is formal education? We get this question asked all the time.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I went to college. I've got a 4-year degree. I was quickly into a space where one, I felt insecure about my education because I didn't go to Cornell or to the right school per se. And those are issues and obstacles that in our journey. I've sat in meetings where, when I was young, people go, "Where did you go to school?" And it was, I'd slouch down a little bit because I was embarrassed or uncomfortable with it. The reality is it might matter for a few years, but ours is an industry that a bellman can become a general manager. I mentioned, I've told the story a few times about a waiter that was waiting on me and at a restaurant, going to school during the day to finish an accounting degree. And, that individual, one thing led to another and ended up in the internship, and then did finish his school and internship, and today is COO of one of our competitors, and ended up in a great position, a great role. Education and growth is super important. It's something all of us need to focus on. I tell both my daughters, when you go to bed at night, are you a better person? Did you do something to grow? Formal education is ideal. I would challenge people to go through the process to make sure they're prepared to hopefully fast track their future. But that does not mean you can't do that nights while you're working. This is an industry that EQ is as important as IQ, and the ability to work and multitask is incredibly important.
I like that. It's about education and constantly learning, not necessarily about formal education, although you can't knock it either.
No, and it's important, and you're gonna, if those that I know that have it is, there's times you're gonna wish you had it. I think to me, it demonstrates commitment that someone's done it. I don't care if if you're working here for us now, but you're going on and doing it, even though you've got a good job. It just shows that you're focused and you're willing to learn. It creates opportunities to move people more quickly. because it does make a statement. But ours is an industry that, compared to many, you can have a great career and never finish college.
That's right. And also, like what you said about EQ being more important than IQ. I love that.
Yeah.
Especially in our business, that's absolutely true.
We sell, people think we sell rooms, and that's part of it. But we, and certainly as you think about the restaurants and all the other components in the resorts, we sell human interaction, we sell experiences, and people that appreciate and understand and are empathetic to someone who shows up after a long day on the road or understands the reason someone's there. Those are the things those are the touch points that make all the difference and make you successful in this space.
Absolutely. Those touch points are what makes the experience so special and memorable. Thanks for sharing that. Let's talk about work-life balance. You've had some very demanding jobs when you're coming up the ladder. How did you balance that, especially when you have younger kids at home?
So if I would tell you that I didn't do it well when I was young. I'm much better at it now. And, I think it at times, and I tried. I mean, there are times I'd be conscious of it. But I think slowing down enough to celebrate moments or to understand kind of your journey and those you care about's important. I'm much better now. So if I look at myself today and I say work-life balance, one, I'll include family occasionally on business trips. I schedule time with my children, and towards as they were older, I would make an effort to schedule those kind of those one-on-one times. A lot of people compartmentalize their life, and when you're performing, I don't want to say at a high level, but when you have a high intensity job, you need to blend those a little bit more. You need to bring some of that into your professional life. And my children today, they're older now, but they're very close to people that I've worked with in the journey. So as I got older and went through my career, I got better at it. And it is one of those things you have to be careful of as you're raising your hand to move all the time for the next job or the next promotion.
Yeah. Very good. Let's talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. You've built quite a diverse team. How has embracing diversity, equity, inclusion helped you and helped your company?
I think first and foremost, and I made this comment earlier, from my perspective, I've never wanted a team that would just echo what I said. So first, when I think about diversity, equity, inclusion, I think fundamentally it just makes you better, and it makes you better because we have 60,000 employees in this company. We're not servicing our customers or our associate base if they all look like me. At one point in my career, when I was newly promoted, I got a team of my people together, and this wasn't about ethnicity or anything at the time. It was just sitting with the room. I said, listen, if you don't have different opinions than me, if you don't bring something else to the equation, I'm going to make a couple changes, because I want people who challenge the way I think or bring a different perspective. And 6 months later, 2 of those people are gone, and we brought in people that think differently, have different experiences to add to the value. And I think it's that simple. At Interstate, when I was there, I made a lot of changes. I ended up with a leadership team that was more female than male. And I didn't set out to do that, but those were the people who, just as I'm interviewing and as I'm talking about the business, brought different thoughts and perspectives. And I think that's what's important as you move into leadership roles, as you move into management roles. Yes, you want the folks that are solving your problems, but the reality is you want people feeding you different ways and different things to think. To me, that means by the nature of that, you're going to have a diverse workforce, or you should.
That's very well said. I really like what you just said. Love it. Okay, now we're all older and wiser now. And
Yep.
as you look back, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I touched on it already a little bit. I'd enjoy the moments more and celebrate with the people around you. I'm very much head down. What's the next problem? And I think at times have not patted everybody on the back, because I feel a pressure for our people and our teams to grow, and I feel an obligation to continue to push to try to be better. And sometimes I'm the toughest on the people closest to me because of that. And those are the ones who at times, I need to slow down and do more with, break bread with more, those types of things. I actually fresh off a retreat last week. So just did that with my team after we got through our budget meetings and our business plan for next year. But I think, not only your work team, but your broader family and friends, it's slow down, listen more. And that's not just at work, that's at home. Even when you're having that conversation with a family member, a spouse, listen to what they're really saying. Try to hear through what the top issue is and get to the core of it.
Yeah. Like you, I was a taskmaster. And always, once I solve one problem, I'm on to the next one. I never gave myself any rest and never took time to cherish the moment. And what you said is so true. We have to make time and listen more and learn to enjoy the moment more. That's wonderful advice. Thanks for sharing that.
There was one period in my life where I would go home, and my wife's line for a period of time is, "Stop! I don't work for you. Let's rephrase how we're having this conversation." But honestly, that not only made me reflect on my family, but also made me reflect on how you're talking to people at work, and how sometimes we get the blinders on and we forget the empathy side of our business, or the need to be part of a team, which is important in our industry. So
That's right. Well, we're coming to the end of the show, but I would like to have one more piece of advice. Our show is about self-empowerment. So can you share one more piece of advice on self-empowerment?
Be your own advocate is really, this is a great industry. There's a lot of opportunity in our space, and I'm sure in many, it's the only industry I know, but I'm sure the case is true for many businesses. And it's finding that balance, defining your brand, but then being that advocate for your own growth. And I guess I go back to what I said earlier about my comment I would make to my daughters is, are you growing? Are you learning? Then that's a good day, and just be your advocate, focus on that.
That's great. Wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Mike. I know you've been a busy guy, and I am so grateful that you're taking the time to be on our show and sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you again.
I appreciate it, David. Thank you. All right.
And to our audience, I appreciate you taking the time to be on our show as well. And if you enjoy the show, I hope you join us on our website. It's deiadvisors.org. We hope to see you there. Thanks again, Mike.
All right. Bye-bye.
You. Bye.